Well, good evening and thank you for joining us tonight. My name is Kimberly Criswell and I'm a dietitian here with Evangelical Community Hospital. So today I plan to speak on the topic of calorie density. So first I'd like to explain a little bit about what the concept means, and then maybe we could talk a little bit about what makes foods higher or lower in calorie density, and then how might we adjust meals or snacks or even recipes in order to make them less calorie dense. Okay, so the first thing, what does calorie density mean? It's basically just calories per unit of weight in the food. So this handout, does everybody have this? Got this when you came in the door? So this handout is talking about calories per pound. But also, you can calculate calorie density using the nutrition facts label on a food if you're curious, and especially if you'd like to compare one food to another. And on your nutrition facts label, the weight of the food will be in grams. So you'll just be using grams instead of pounds. It doesn't matter either way. You could just use that to compare two foods by taking the amount of calories in a serving divided by the grams in a serving. Okay, so either way, you'll see which number is higher, which number is lower, and you can compare one food to another. Okay, and then why? Why would we even look at that? Why is that important? Well, sometimes if a person wants to lose weight, or if they want to decrease the amount of calories that they're eating, they might say, well, I'll just eat a smaller volume of food. You know, I'll just take what I'm eating and I'll decrease the amount so that I can decrease the calories that I'm taking in. Well, the issue with that can be that most people will not be comfortably full and satisfied unless they're eating at least 3 to 4 pounds of food over the course of a day. And so for some people, it actually takes even more than that. It takes 5 to 7 pounds of food in a day to make them feel full. So if we just decrease the amount of food that we're eating in order to decrease our calories, we might not feel full and our body might constantly be craving more food. So we're hungry all the time, and that's not something that we could sustain over a long period of time because we just won't be comfortable. So then the other thing is that in order to fill your stomach until your stomach is comfortably full, it takes about a quart of volume. Okay, a quart or a liter, they're very similar. So what I have in front of me are quart bags with food in them, and just various types of food, and I've arranged them in the same order the food categories are arranged on this paper. So starting at the very end, water is the lowest calorie dense food because it has 0, right? Next to that are vegetables. So here is a quart bag. So keeping in mind, this is how much volume it takes to comfortably fill most people's stomachs at a meal or a snack. These are cherry tomatoes, all 100 calories, okay? So this is 100 calories of tomatoes versus carrots versus broccoli. So this gives you a pretty good amount of fullness for the 100 calories when you eat these. These are called non-starchy vegetables. Can anyone give me examples of other non-starchy vegetables that would fall into this category? Flour. Yes. Peppers, cauliflower, cucumber. Yes. Did somebody else say lettuce? Exactly. It takes a whole lot of lettuce to give you 100 calories. It wouldn't even fit in one of these bags. So those are our non-starchy vegetables, very low in calorie density, very filling for the calories. The next thing on your paper, see here, are fruits. So this is just 2 examples of fruits, strawberries and grapes. You're about this full for the 100 calories, okay? So that would apply to most any fresh or frozen fruits that don't have sugar added to them. Next thing on the paper would be grains. Here I just have an example of popcorn. You're this full for the 100 calories. And these foods, when we put all these foods together, they're so filling because they tend to have one or more of three things in them: more water, more fiber, or more air. So when you have more water, fiber, and air in your food, it's going to look more filling, it's going to take up more volume, and it's going to be heavier. It's just literally going to be more filling. And so that's what's in these things. So then if we travel a little farther down on the paper, it goes to things like meats and cheeses. So this is 100 calories worth of either meat or cheese. Okay. And then the reason they tend to be more calorie dense would be the part of the fat content in them. Then here I've got some candy and some cookies, 100 calories worth. Here I've got some chips and some crackers. And then these are peanuts and almonds. So that's 100 calories worth. So why? What separates these foods from these foods? Well, these over here, where you get a smaller amount for the 100 calories, are just more calorie dense. Typically, those will be foods with more fat added or foods that are more highly processed. So when we process food, sometimes they have refined grains in them. They have added fats and added sugars in them. And those are things that make them more calorie dense. So here, if you want a sweet snack, if it's a more processed sweet snack with maybe fat or sugar or both added to it, it just won't be as filling as a sweet snack that has natural sugar and has a lot more water and fiber in it. And then the same, if you want something starchy, this has refined flour and fat added. This is, it's cooked in fat, whereas this starchy snack just happens to be lower in fat and also has more air in it. So you can see there's quite a bit of a difference for the 100 calories depending on the food. That was my project last night. What do you think? Is it interesting?
Yes, it is.
Take a look at. Yes. All right. So, and that's the main difference. Just to repeat it, these tend to have more water, more air, more fiber. These tend to have either, in the case of nuts, they're a healthy fat, but they're mainly the calories come from fat, or there might be some foods that just naturally contain more added flour or sugar or fat. Okay. So then on your chart here, you can see what I brought is just very few items off the list, but you can see here it goes through a lot of examples listed here of vegetables, fruits, grains, legumes. I did not show you an example of legumes, but that would mean any of your dried or canned beans, lentils, split peas, things like that. Those are very concentrated in fiber. And then it goes through things that naturally are higher in processed food or oil on the other side. So this is sort of a system where if we eat more of the green light foods and less of the yellow or red light foods, we will just be more full by the time we've eaten. We'll be taking in fewer calories by the time we've eaten enough food to feel comfortably full. Okay. All right. So then the next thing I wanted to talk a little bit about would be, what are some of the foods or meals that we're already enjoying that are naturally lower in calorie density? Those would be meals that are higher in water content, higher in the amount of fruits, vegetables, whole grains, and legumes. So they'd be higher in whole foods, and they would naturally be lower in the added fats or sugars or refined grains. So what can you think of? What are meals that you're eating right now that have a lot of vegetables in them, for example? Soup. Salad. Yeah, they're just naturally bulky and filling because they have a lot of vegetables. Also, snacking on vegetables. Does anyone like to snack on vegetables? Yeah. What kinds are the best for snacks? Celery, carrots. I keep cherry tomatoes on my countertop. So I'll bring them home, wash them, and I'll snack on those. And you know what might be a good point here too? Some of these we like plain, but some of these we only like maybe with a dip or with peanut butter. So if we add something that has fat to it, we've already made it a lot more calories, right? So it might be better to eat the ones that we tend to enjoy, even if we haven't added extra calories to them. How about fruit? How are some ways that you incorporate fruit into your diet?
In yogurt for breakfast, bananas for breakfast.
Yeah, bananas are great, right?
Peanut butter.
True. Yeah. Apples, yeah, they're great for snacking. How about legumes? So legumes are interesting in that they're the most concentrated source of fiber naturally in a food. So also they've got a lot of water in them. So they are one of those things that are naturally pretty low in calorie density. So what are some foods that you eat that are made with legumes? Chili is popular.
Ham and bean soup.
Someone said rice and beans, ham and bean soup. How about
black bean, burgers.
Yeah, there's all those plant-based burgers now and burritos, tacos. Yeah, so that's a good way to decrease the calorie density. I think too, even some people like split pea soup. Do you like the split pea soup? No. Lentil soup. How about hummus? No? Yes? Okay. All right, good.
Well, hummus would make a good dip for your other vegetables.
There you go. Perfect. Yeah, that'd be a great dip.
I have a question.
Yeah.
How do you feel about the powdered peanut butter? Because it does have sugar in it, but it takes out the fat.
It's probably lower in calories overall. So the powdered peanut butter, because it's fat-free, tends to be lower in calories than peanut butter with natural oil in it.
You can do that with your apples, apples, and I like peanut butter with iron. But I think that even an apple with regular peanut butter is probably a much better choice than putting half a bag of potato chips.
Right, they'd still be lower in calories than that. And that powdered peanut butter is very convenient to measure too. I've already used it in soups that call for peanut butter in the broth, and it's just very easy to just whisk it in. What about whole grains instead of refined grains? How have you made some trades in your diet to increase the fiber from whole grains?
All doing better.
Bulgur wheat.
Just like that.
How about, has anyone tried any of those whole grain or higher fiber pastas?
I've tried the pasta, it's boring.
Okay.
I didn't like it.
Oh, okay.
Whole wheat pasta.
The whole wheat pasta.
Well, that's a nice day.
I liked your example though of bulgur wheat because that's something that's very convenient to cook. Just, I don't know about you, but any recipe I've used, you just put it in the dish, cover it with boiling water, let it sit for 10 minutes, and it just fluffs up and cooks on its own. You can do that while you're working on something else.
Really? I always cook it.
Oh, yeah, you could cook it too, but that's how I learned to make it, and it worked. Yeah.
But it's really nice too because it gives a nice mouth feel.
Right.
So you feel like you're like kind of chewing or crunching on your soup, which is
Yeah, it's
So I think
chewy.
you can throw it in your hot broth and that's how it can cook.
Yeah, and it has a nice nutty flavor.
Yeah. It's a good.
Yeah, great. So then too, has anyone tried cooking with quinoa or millet or wild rice or any of those other whole grains they have in the store?
Yeah. I like the wild rice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Rice is okay.
Yeah, it gives you a little bit more fiber. Okay,
Then there's that arsenic problem.
right, with rice. So sometimes people switch over to a little more of the quinoa then, which supposedly should be okay, right?
What's the arsenic problem?
Right, shouldn't be dated, right.
So
Yeah.
some soils, especially soils in this country that may have been used to grow cotton, there might have been some pesticides or herbicides, some sprays used that contained arsenic, and that's gotten into the soil, and they found out rice can pull that out of the soil. So I think then a lot of people have gone towards maybe some other grains instead of rice, just to put more variety in their diet, just in case. How about foods with more air? So popcorn is an example of that, but what are some other foods we can eat that are puffed or popped so that they look more filling? What? Yeah, that does sound good.
I love that.
What? Puffed wheat, yeah, all those puffed and popped cereals are more filling.
Rice cake.
Rice cake, rice cakes come in all different flavors now.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's a good one. Yeah. Oh, you know what else? I was reading recently, apples have air in them. That's why people used to bob for apples, because they float. So there's just naturally some air in a lot of foods, and it just makes them more bulky and filling. Yeah. All right. So what about fluid? What are some meals we eat? Someone mentioned soup, and that's a good example, but what are some meals we eat that naturally have a lot of extra water added to them so they're more filling? Salad.
A meal, but watermelon, cucumbers, and celery, all. And
Right, quite a bit of fruits and vegetables are really high. What about smoothies? Does anyone make smoothies for a meal?
I do.
And you can blend that with water instead of fruit juice, right?
I use yogurt, plain yogurt,
Mm-hmm.
and I throw half a banana and the strawberries, and I put it in my blender.
Mm-hmm. Very tasty.
No sugar.
Yeah. There was a really interesting research study done at Penn State where they took two groups of people, and the one group was given chicken and rice casserole for a meal, and the other group was given a chicken and rice soup. And they were asked to just eat ad libitum, eat as much as you want until you feel full. And the group that had the soup, which is basically the exact same ingredients used for the chicken and rice casserole, but with broth added to turn it into a soup, ate significantly fewer calories because that water in the soup just mixed with the food that they were eating and made it more filling. Yeah. So even if there's something you were already enjoying and you just add more of something, water or something else to it and make it into a different dish, you'll have something, it might be comforting to you because it's something you're already enjoying. You're just maybe altering it slightly and you hopefully would still enjoy it.
I have a question about smoothies. Don't you have to be careful with smoothies because, you don't have much fiber in there, you're not, and then because you're blending so many fruits, then it's very calorie dense. So, I don't know, my personal trainer, when I used to have one and I was in good shape, she said, be careful with smoothies.
And sometimes people make smoothies more calorie dense by adding sugar or fruit juice or things like that.
Yogurt, maybe.
Sweetened yogurt. But if you're concerned about the fiber, you might just even choose higher fiber fruits to put in your smoothie. You'll notice some are much higher than others. So maybe mangoes or berries. And a nice way that you can determine which are the highest fiber fruits is just to check out the frozen fruit aisle, because they will have the fiber listed on the nutrition fact label. So you can see which ones are more fiber dense, because even among your fruit, there's quite a bit of variation in fiber. But I'm always thinking of the ones that seem more like a mango. You can tell it's got that texture to it, or things that have more skins on them, like berries, will naturally have a higher fiber content. What are meals that naturally contain, if meat is more calorie dense, what are meals that naturally contain smaller volumes of meat, where it's used more as part of the dish or a seasoning, as opposed to a meal that would include a larger piece of meat? Can you think of examples of meals like that? Casseroles, soups and stews, chili, stir fries. They have smaller pieces. And even someone had mentioned like a burrito bowl. That tends to have, as a base, maybe some quinoa or some kind of a whole grain, and on top, a smaller amount of meat, but then maybe a lot of vegetables from lettuce, tomatoes, salsa, things like that. I was even thinking, what about pasta dishes? That a lot of times contains a smaller amount of meat, and a larger amount you could use like whole grains and lots of vegetables in them, like a pasta primavera.
What did you say?
Like a pasta primavera might be a dish that has a smaller amount of meat and a larger amount of vegetables or whole grains.
Aren't you worried about the pasta?
What?
Isn't pasta more fattening and?
Well, it's technically, if you look on here, if we use a whole grain pasta, you could count it closer to this side, whereas one that's more of a white pasta might be closer to this side on your paper. Yeah, so it could be either way. How about foods that are cooked with a smaller amount of added fat to them? Has anyone been using any kind of cooking techniques that tends to be lower in fat?
Yes, right.
Air fryers?
Gross.
Grilling. It's getting to be beautiful outside. We'll probably be doing more grilling. Yes.
Baking.
Baking. Right, you can bake, you can oven fry. If you crank your oven up pretty hot, you can get some nice caramelization and browning on food. Okay. And then what about, are there any ways you can cook or prepare your meals with that happen to have less added sugar? So what are some things you would eat or snack on that would reduce your added sugars? Popcorn.
Rice cake.
Rice cake. And plus, what about drinks? Sometimes we get quite a bit of sugar from our drinks. What are some drinks that don't have any sugar in them?
Tea.
Tea.
Or heavy.
And if we make it ourselves, we can control how much we put in too, right? Yeah. Do you like just drinking water with lemon, or like maybe fruit or vegetable infused waters, cucumber water? Just plain water. Yeah. Seltzer water, they have a lot of those with no sugar added. Yeah. The other thing I thought too is on the other end of the spectrum, maybe thinking of some foods that we make or some meals that we make that tend to be higher in calorie density naturally, and how could we adjust the recipe, or how could we eat a different food? So can anyone think of any examples of meals that you think of as being really high calorie meals and how we might adjust them?
Ziti, something we love that may help enchiladas.
Probably. right? And two of those three are pasta dishes, right? So how can we adjust our pasta dishes, for instance, to add more fiber to them?
And vegetables.
Will we pasta, add more vegetables?
Vegetables, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Zucchini.
I like it.
I have made, lasagna without the noodles, but zucchini,
Mhm.
sliced thin, and I really like it. My family's like, not what?
Oh.
They're terrible. Maybe if I did it, like if I put a squash like a yellow color.
Yes. Well, and I've already roasted it and added it to the marinara sauce.
Yeah.
And it has like a nice sweetness to it.
Good. I guess you could always use less lasagna noodles.
Mhm.
Eggplant.
Mhm. Eggplant.
Yeah.
If you like it.
Yes, some people use planks of other vegetables, like you were saying, the zucchini or the eggplant. And then too, one of the things that's more calorie dense in those pasta dishes tends to be the meats or the dairy products. So how could we adjust that so that it's lower in calories,
Pick the meat.
Yeah.
Together.
Yeah.
right?
Use turkey or instead of, or chicken.
Mhm.
instead of-
Right. So some people skip the meat. Some people use a really lean ground meat, like turkey, you can get up to 99% lean. A lot of those ground meats. And I noticed too in the grocery store, there's a lot more variety of those veggie crumbles. And some of those are completely fat-free too, and they're a plant-based protein. And, you know, when you're layering it all together, it seems to turn, you can do a lot of changes to it and the end product is still very tasty.
Yeah. Meat of whole bag of frozen veggies that you put in the food processor, chop them up, and chop them up not too fine, but they're like that mouthfeel is really good because chunky. So
Yes.
that's what I do instead of meat.
Right, they can be minced or diced and then they cook down into the sauce and yeah, and they're delicious too, right? They lend a lot of flavor to the sauce. Okay, okay, what about French fries? I like French fries. How can we make our French fries healthier?
I've been driving.
Mhm.
Air fry.
Air fry or oven fry? Okay. Okay, and here's another one that I like in my house. What about pasta salad here for the summer coming up? How can we make our pasta salad healthier? Whole grain pasta, vegetable pasta. Have you tried any of those pastas made of legumes, like the chickpea or the red lentil pastas?
My sister made she called it pasta with pasta salad,
Mm-hmm.
and she just put all the vegetables in there
Mm-hmm.
and put the Italian dressing on it. It was
Mhm.
delicious. You didn't even really miss the pasta,
Right.
so it
Yeah.
was really good.
I've already made it too, where you mentioned with vegetables, with half spaghetti squash and half angel hair pasta. So I sort of diluted the pasta, but I still had some starch. And then two, has anyone ever experimented with making grain salads and using a whole grain instead of the pasta? So wheat berries, have you ever heard of wheat berries?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're just a whole grain. They are the grain that they grind up to make the flour that is then used to make pasta or bread or crackers. Anything made from wheat. So you can purchase the whole grain and you just boil it. It's nutty, it's delicious, it has a really nice texture to it, and I think it smells amazing too when it's boiling. It almost seems to smell like fresh baked bread when it's boiling. And then, so I've already used those wheat berries. I've already used those to substitute for pasta. In the grocery store too, you'll notice where they sell the brown rice, there'll be kamut, that's like a larger shaped grain that's similar to a wheat berry. There'll be quinoa. Has anyone ever cooked with that?
Yeah.
So you can make salads out of that. You just cook any of these whole grains, chill them, and then use them like you would the pasta in a pasta salad.
Okay.
Bulgur, you could use that way. It's great in salad. Yeah, and it cooks quickly because it's parboiled and then re-dried, so it takes up the fluid so quickly. So to me, it's kind of a convenience food, but it's made of a whole grain.
Which one are you talking about?
The bulgur wheat. Mhm. The other thing is with pasta salad, more vegetables, right? Lots of vegetables are very good in pasta salad. What kind of vegetables do you put in yours?
Peppers, broccoli, cauliflower, beans, peppers, tomatoes, mushrooms.
Mushrooms. Blanched green beans, right? Or defrosted vegetables. Mhm. And then also when I'm making mine, I'll always put some chickpeas and some kidney beans in it, and that gives you extra fiber and protein. And then how about if we were to put meats or cheeses in our pasta salad, how can we reduce the calorie of that? What are some low fat ones that we can use?
Turkey pepperoni.
Yeah. All the cheeses they'll make in low fat, just like they'll sell you lower fat milk, they'll sell you lower fat cheeses. Lean meats, like some people put ham, that tends to be leaner, so you can really make a big difference. But what about the dressing? How can we reduce the fat in the dressing? Vinaigrette. Yeah, do you know what I'll sometimes do? Is I'll buy a fat-free Italian dressing because I like to put olives in my pasta salad. You can eat 20 olives for the same fat as a little over 2 teaspoons of dressing. So the fat-free dressing has all the flavor that I want, and then the olives give me like the creaminess and the fat in the salad. Yeah, I like it. Really tasty in it. So you might like the olives better.
Yeah, I think I will.
Okay. What about cream soups? How can we decrease the calories in cream soups?
Maybe skim milk.
Skim milk.
I've heard you can make a really nice Alfredo with tofu, but I've never done it.
You can.
What?
Tofu, silken tofu can be pureed to the consistency of cream. And it's not as high in fat as cream. So you can also puree in a little bit of raw cashew nuts. If you puree raw cashew nuts in a high-speed, high-power blender, it will puree to the consistency of heavy cream. So you could add some of those for a little bit of fat, but not quite as much. And yeah, you can thicken soups by pureeing a lot of different things.
Cauliflower.
Cauliflower, that's great because it looks the same, right? Yeah,
And the best thing is you can get it right already at Walmart, you don't have to do the work.
that's right.
You know, this cooking and some people don't have time for that.
Exactly. Well, yeah, because you had said you like to put minced vegetables and different things. So if you buy them rice, that's great.
Yeah.
All right, good. I've actually already in the past used fat-free evaporated milk in cream soups too. It has that long cooked flavor and it's thicker and it has a little bit of almost like a caramelized flavor to it. So it can be used in a cream soup as well. I've already used pureed rice to thicken a soup. It still has less calories than the cream. So you can, if you put something in a blender and blend it up, it really makes the soup, it combines the flavors in a very nice way too. So I've noticed even taking half your soup out and blending it and putting it back in the pot, or blending it a little bit in the pot with an immersion blender, it gets thick and the flavors tend to really come out in a nice way. Okay. Okay, this is the one from my childhood. Eating ice cream at night as a snack. What are some things we can eat or some things we can do to decrease the calories there without
Frozen yogurt.
frozen yogurt,
Sherbet.
sherbet?
Still a lot of sugar, I think.
Yeah.
And you have to get the low fiber.
They have low calorie ones. What about just yogurt? It's sweet, it's creamy, right? No?
Yeah.
Not everyone.
Yogurt is breakfast food.
Yeah, true. Has anyone ever heard of nice cream with an N?
No.
Have you made that?
I haven't.
It's made taking frozen bananas. You just peel bananas and put them in a bag and throw them in your freezer. And then you put them in your food processor, whip them up, and they get pretty convincingly to the same texture as ice cream. If you like bananas.
Actually,
Oh,
I
did not like.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, you.
You'd have to like bananas, and you could flavor it different ways too. Some people will put some strawberries with it, or some cocoa powder with it, or some different things.
I think you can do it with, like, I don't know if it's like, that would be coconut milk and the base or something.
Mm-hmm.
My family uses ice cream like it's gonna go out extinct, and so they have to think.
Oh, you're searching for something creative. Yeah. What about chips? What are some lower calorie snacks instead of chips? Mhm.
I did those kale chips once.
Oh,
They were actually good.
yeah.
Yeah. A lot of work. It is. You're right.
And you can season them.
Yeah, but it is a lot of work to get them all, but they were good.
Yeah, they taste good. I made those too. I had a bumper crop in my garden last year. Has anyone ever tried, on a similar topic to the kale chips, has anyone ever heard of seaweed snacks?
Yeah.
I tried that,
It wasn't.
overkill.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah. How about any of those other puffed or pop snacks in the grocery store? You mentioned rice cakes, but there's what?
I don't think that would
They
be.
don't work for me. I would need something heavier, like an apple.
Right.
But not something soft. I'll just go with whatever it was I was trying to avoid in the food.
Okay. Yeah, if you don't enjoy it, it's probably just not gonna do the trick at all, right? Well, that's the other thing. You had mentioned an apple. Some people will take something from this side and combine it with something from this side and eat them both at the same time. So this might be the thing that you're really enjoying the flavor of, and this might be the thing you add to it to really fill you up.
Apple and cheese.
Yeah, apples and cheese, exactly. A lot of this, a little bit of this, and you're full, but it's not that many calories in the end. Yeah. Good. Well, that's mainly everything I have. Do you have any questions for me? Yeah,
Question, you have potatoes down here
yeah.
on the low. I was surprised at that. I thought potatoes were very high in starch and stuff, I mean, high in everything. That would be something to avoid.
Right, so they're naturally a starch, but the highest calorie thing on our potato is usually the thing we're frying it in, or maybe the sour cream or the butter that we're putting on top of it. Yeah, they're quite a bit lower in calorie density. So if you were to just eat a plain baked potato or boiled potato, it's a whole lot lower in calories without the fat added to it.
Where does the sweet potato fall then?
The same.
Okay.
And in fact, the sweet potato is higher in fiber than the white or the red potato.
And if you put vinegar on your white baked potato, you lower the,
Glycemic index.
yes.
Yeah. Meals that are naturally have vinegar added are lower in glycemic index. So that's why you might have heard sourdough bread is lower than white bread. It's the acidity. or a potato salad. And even when you cook a potato and then chill it and then put acid on it, it lowers the glycemic index. Yes.
So I think I could answer my own question, but wouldn't you just want to go get a pizza?
Well, you know, what I always say is, if you plan to eat a certain way, you could, on one hand, you could say, I'll try to choose a healthier pizza, or you could say, look, this is my treat. I'll just eat my healthy way 90% of the time and treat myself.
What's a healthy pizza?
A healthier pizza usually has a cauliflower or a whole grain crust. Healthier pizza has lean meat, lots of vegetables, and light cheese. So when you go on a pizza restaurant's website, they'll show you their options for lower calorie pizzas. They'll usually group them together, and those are how they make them.
What about a white sub? I'm gonna get a hoagie at white.
We need lots of vegetables, not extra mayonnaise. That's how you can lower the calorie density of any meal by adding less fat to it. So, you know, when you get a sub, they might put a lot of oil on it. They might put really high fat meats and cheeses, a lot of extra mayonnaise. So if you go light on the added fat and choose the leaner meat, you've really lowered the calories quite a bit.
But isn't it true that if you deny yourself something that you're craving for, you just will go off completely? So
Right, you might. So that's,
it's better to have like a half and eat it and enjoy that
mhm,
portion than to, because if you deny, you're gonna sit down and eat a whole piece of yourself or
right.
stuff yourself.
Right, that's why a lot of people shoot for 90% of the time, and then they have their treat, they don't feel guilty, and that's how they find their balance.
I was gonna say, I think that the Europeans really have like a love affair with their food.
Mhm.
And so one thing that we really, here not, mastered is allowing yourself a treat and don't say to yourself or your friends or anything negative, like,
Right.
oh my gosh, this is like 5,000 calories now that I'm up to, I've been counting.
Mhm.
Just, and so I'm trying to think about that
Mhm.
and actually, because I just eat food because I love it and I eat it all the time. But what if I changed my mindset and actually
Mhm.
sat down and thought about, this is a treat and I am not feeling a bit guilty about it because I love it and I'm gonna enjoy every bite of it. And then
Mhm.
maybe I wouldn't feel like I had to have 10 pounds of it or whatever.
Right,
Just like a mindset thing, and don't think about like, well, that's gonna go straight to my hips or my stomach, but actually enjoy eating that food and stop. This is an American thing, I think, that we do, that we cut ourselves off at the legs and
mhm.
we don't enjoy our food.
Right, and you want to have that positive mindset, I think that's very healthy.
Mindful thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Has anyone ever done it? Has anyone been successful? Because I'm not good at it yet.
It's a work in progress, right? Did you have a
Good
question?
at it, then
Yes, I was wondering if you could recommend a brand of like butter spread. Like,
Okay.
or like your toast or.
Well, the brands are constantly changing. I tend to purchase the plant-based brand, and I'll just look for one with no saturated fat added, no trans fat added. So what I want is that healthy unsaturated fat.
Right.
And if you can get one that's whipped,
Yeah.
it's a lot less calories.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sure.
So how do you feel about just olive oil then on your?
Yeah, I use olive oil the most in my house over other things. Or things from Whole Foods like nuts, olives, avocado, seeds.
Or coconut oil, I don't know if that's
Mhm.
healthy or not. You hear different, you hear split down the middle.
Coconut oil is not recommended by the American Heart Association because it is a saturated fat. So it could contribute to raising our cholesterol, and it could contribute to insulin resistance.
What about coffee sweeteners?
Coffee sweeteners. Ah, okay. Do you mean artificial?
Coffee additives,
Oh, like artificial sweeteners?
like almond milk or something, or do you use that, have to use whole milk?
Almond milk tends to be pretty low in calories, if you're talking about calorie density. If you were to add something higher in saturated fat, it would have a lot more calories. So like a creamer, a half and half, a whole milk would have a lot more calories than something that's low fat or fat free, like an almond milk or a skim milk. And some people get used to drinking their coffee black, but it takes a while. It took me about a month to phase into it. Yeah. But
Is it better to bake with oil or butter?
I bake with oil because it's an unsaturated fat. The butter is a saturated fat and it can do, the same as the coconut oil. And
Vegetable oil.
yeah, canola or olive oil are those liquid oils are unsaturated.
Yeah.
The solid oils could raise cholesterol or promote insulin resistance. Solid fat.
When you proportioned your stuff there, did you weight it
I
with
used
a scale?
a glass Pyrex measuring cup, and for these, I used a tablespoon. And for these, I got the nutrition facts off the packages, all of these, and for these, I looked them up online.
That quantity looks like it teases you.
What? Which one?
That little meat.
Yeah.
3 slices of meat, that's a teaser.
Yeah, make it down with that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have heard that when you eat a snack or your meal, you want to have a little bit of fat, protein and fiber in
Yes.
everything that you eat.
Because it delays stomach emptying, so you feel full longer after that kind of a meal.
So I guess what would be an example of something?
Hummus and vegetables, nuts with fruit or vegetables, like a lower fat meat or cheese with fruit or vegetables or popcorn. Yes,
My question is, what about the puff, like the new crackers are coming out that are baked and puffed?
mhm.
Are they would they be like something that we could trade off or not?
Yeah, you could try it. You could just look and see. Every time they come out with something new, look and see, does it have more or less calories than popcorn? But those are an advantage to some people who can't tolerate the holes in popcorn. So, that could be something you could use. For instance, if someone were to have diverticulitis, they might use more of a puff snack or a rice cake instead of this, which has the hole in it.
Is that air pop?
What?
Is that air pop?
I popped this in my microwave. This is Skinny Pop packets from the grocery store. Yes.
What about dried fruit?
The dried fruit is more calorie dense. 2 tablespoons of dried fruit has the same calories as a fist or a tennis ball of fresh fruit. Because the water is removed. You still get the fiber. The other thing that can make dried fruit more calorie dense is that they frequently will add sugar to it.
Sometimes they say you can have a cup of raw cauliflower, per se, or it's equal to a half a cup of coke.
Yes, because it shrinks when you cook it. But still, it's a non-starchy vegetable, so it really should be unlimited, calorie-wise.
What about the artificial sweetener? I just read an article on that. If you use that, it has a tendency to make you more hungry.
Yes. When we regularly eat or drink artificial sweeteners, it can increase our food craving.
So what do you recommend using if I'm a
Probably the smallest amount possible that makes you still enjoy the food, or if you can gradually ease your taste buds away from artificial sweeteners, that is ideal.
What's healthier, the raw vegetables or cooked vegetables?
Either is healthy.
It's equally the same.
And especially if you cook them so that they're still bright in color. you've retained a lot of the micronutrients, the vitamins and minerals and phytochemicals in them.
Thank you.
Frozen vegetables or the canned vegetables? I know during summer we eat the fresh out of the garden.
Mm-hmm.
My husband and I have been arguing about this all winter. I said the frozen are better, and he insists that canned are better. And so,
Well,
just like,
we always used to say the frozen were better, number one, because they tend to be picked at the peak of ripeness. So they tend to be very high in nutrients. And then the canned used to always have salt added. Well, now the canned ones frequently can be purchased with no salt added, and they seem to be brighter in color and fresher and not cooked so much. So probably still the frozen, but I believe canned have come a long way, and no matter what, I would just be happier if you were eating more vegetables, no matter how it's packaged. Right.
Over, chips, you're probably doing good.
Right, exactly. Everything's on a spectrum of health, right?
Right.